This is Xavier with Modern Exterior, and today I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about how to properly identify and address attic mold. I'm going to break this video down into 4 sections for you. One is going to be the identification of attic mold. 2 is going to be the prevention of mold in your attic. 3 is going to be attic mold removal, and 4 is going to be attic mold removal cost. Now, first, before we jump into any section, let's talk about what we think of when we hear the word mold. You know, I'm sure we all know what mold is and what it looks like. I instantly think of old produce when it starts to get those white, kind of grayish, greenish spores all over. That kind of indicates it's time to throw it away and maybe clean up the area where it was. This mold is actually way more similar to attic mold than one would think, given that the main causes are temperature, being in a warm and humid climate, and just moisture buildup overall. Produce typically has a higher water content, and your attic space is 95% wood, which is a porous material that's going to allow water to soak up, and mold is going to thrive and grow off of that. So given those main causes, we can kind of transition into the first section, which again is identification of attic mold. There's many different ways to identify attic mold. Obviously, the easiest way is just going to be the visibility. The early onset stages of mold are going to be dark stains from, it could be leaking. I would suggest going to watch Charlie's video where he talks about leaks in the ceiling and how people kind of just want to paint over it and call it a day. That's really just a band-aid. You're not identifying the problem and addressing the problem properly. So before you remediate it, put a band-aid on it, maybe call a professional, get our opinion, and then go from there. Another visibility is obviously actual mold, where it gets those white, gray, green spores on the dark stains. And once you get to that point, that's kind of the end all be all, where it's not even just advised to call a professional. You probably need to call a professional so that they can do it properly. And maybe someone like myself, an exterior contractor, might have to do some roofing work as well if it's too much to just mitigate at that point. But other ways to identify mold, whether it be early onset or later down the road, is musty odor. Mold produces this stuff called volatile or organic compounds, or VOCs, that's going to leave a moldy, mildew-like odor. Whether you have allergies or not, you could get reactions like itchiness of skin, rashes, irritated eyes, redness of the skin. Another way is frost buildup. Given that that moisture can build up once it gets cold, you're thinking about the decking. Could be warm because it could be stuffy, which is another way you can identify mold. But then you have the cold on the outside, so that moisture could actually freeze on the underside of your decking, which, again, decking is wood, so it could just soak that right up. And then another way, again, is your attic feels stuffy. Obviously, ventilation, insulation, baffles, which we'll get into again, is going to regulate the temperature, humidity, and moisture. So how do we prevent any of that from happening, before it happens? The first and most important way, and what we're always going to suggest, is proper ventilation. John talks about it in his video with sealing bubbles, and he says it best. You need to have air get in, pass through, and get out. And how are we going to do that? Well, typically, especially in today's, let's say, new construction homes, you're going to have a soffit vent, and we want to do a soffit vent because that's going to be the lowest part of your attic. That's going to allow air to get in at the lowest point. And then you're probably going to have insulation. With that insulation, you're going to want to have something like this. It's kind of hard to see because it's very big. This is called a baffle. It sits on the decking and allows the air from the soffit vent to pass through without that insulation blocking it up. And then that air is going to pass all the way through, let the air move around instead of just stay stagnant and, again, cause moisture buildup. And it's going to pass through something like this, which is called the ridge vent, which sits at the very peak of your home. You can kind of see the triangle, that's the peak of your home. There are other outtake and intake. Intake you could look at, gable vents or eave intake vents. Outtake you could look at slant backs, box vents, mushrooms, whatever you want to call them. or things like wind turbines or stuff like that. But it's just important to have both proper intake, proper baffling, and then proper outtake. Now we just talked about the insulation too. Obviously the correct amount of insulation, not too much, not too little, because too little, the temperature is not going to get regulated. It could be too cold, and with that improper ventilation, then you're talking frost buildup potentially again. If you have too much, you're going to create blockages in the intake vents immediately if you don't have the correct baffling, which overall the insulation again is just going to regulate the temperature, humidity, moisture buildup. Other ways that people don't think about is cleaning your gutters. When gutters get clogged with debris, that those leaves and stuff are going to soak up water. Not only are they going to soak up water, though, it's going to not allow the water to flush properly, which means it's instead of going out, it's going to go up. And when it goes up, it's going to go back into your softened fascia area, which again, underneath that metal, or if you have wood already, is wood. So it's going to soak up and crawl its way back into the attic, and boom, there you go, moisture buildup again. Exhaust fans, we talked about that a little earlier. I said bath fan. There are kitchen fans as well. These fans typically have a tubing system that will exhaust. Sometimes they do exhaust out of your siding, but a lot of times you're going to see them exhaust through your attic and out your roof, and they'll connect to a roof cap. Well, if they're not connected to the roof cap properly, or they're connected to a slant back for the outtake, that moisture that comes from a shower or boiling water that travels up that tube is going to expel into the attic, and boom, right back to moisture buildup. Exactly. And then another one obviously is roof leaks. Anything that leaks on your roof is going to soak up the decking, soak up the trusses, soak up the insulation, and mold is just going to be able to thrive on that. What do you do if it gets past that point, though? Well, let's talk about attic mold removal now. There's two ways to do it. There's the home remediation, there's professional remediation. Home remediation, it's just going to be addressing moisture issues, what's happening really, improving your ventilation, whether it be getting an exterior contractor to do the actual work, or just opening doors and windows and that attic space to allow air to kind of come in and out, wearing safety gear, obviously, and then, cleaning and disinfecting, which could be, a bleach compound or white distilled vinegar. But in all reality, let's go back to that safety. That's the most important thing here. So if you're ever unsure of what stage you're at, just call a professional. We partner with plenty of people, and we do it ourselves, that we can determine where it's at and what it needs. So those are just a quick couple ways. When you get the professional help and professional removal, we could use chemicals, we can use vacuums, we can actually remove roofing materials if needed, if it's too far gone. So yeah, there's plenty of different ways, and we do it in a very safe way. So yeah. Now, the biggest question here, especially with removal, is removal cost. What is it going to cost? Is insurance going to cover this? So general pricing could really range anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000. There's so many different factors that goes into that. The severity of the mold, the square footage of the attic, the accessibility of the attic, where's the insulation at, roof leaks, furniture, what is the cleaning and disposal of the, damaged material look like? There's so many different things. So again, it's really, you could probably find an estimator online, but we do free estimates. Everyone should do free estimates. So just reach out to a professional. Again, that's overarching theme here. But is insurance going to cover this? Typically, no. The only way the insurance is going to cover this is if it's falling under the category of covered peril. What is covered peril? Covered peril is really only a couple things. It could be a burst pipe, a leaking appliance, an overflowing toilet, firefighters, or really anyone putting out a fire, or something like a broken water heater. mold isn't really covered because typically it's called preventable damage, and stuff like what I just talked about, covered peril, is sort of unpreventable damage. It kind of just happens. It's out of your control. But that kind of leads me to say it is really important to look into your policy and find out what is covered, and maybe have a conversation with them and see if you can at least get the covered peril under your policy. So if those things do go awry, then you have a little peace of mind there. And again, the preventable damage, typically mold, is kind of found out further down the road. So that's why it's preventable damage, because it could have been prevented probably much earlier. And hopefully the identifying factors, the preventable ways, and the removal kind of helps you guys out here. That is a little bit about just general mold within the attic, and hopefully that helped. But again, if you're ever unsure, just reach out to a professional for help. That's our job, to help you guys in the end. So until next time.